Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. My night court mug. I'm sorry for my voice, I'm getting over a cold. So we're still a little, messed up. But today's video is going to be a book review on The Rose Bargain by Sasha Payton Smith. This was a book that was on my February TBR, but I actually just got around to reading it. I was able to get it really quickly, on release day from Libby, and so I was very excited. And because I was sick, I was at home reading, and so I was able to get this read in a day. And I just kind of wanted to give you my thoughts on it since it is a new release, and I've never read anything from this author before. So first off, the story is kind of pitched as The Selection meets Cruel Prince, or Bridgerton meets Cruel Prince. I think The Selection meets Cruel Prince makes sense. You're following a main character, Ivy, who is about to make her debut into society and then go into the season to find her suitor, her husband, the marriage market, like they used to do in those old-timey England settings. And something that they do every time a group of girls debuts and goes into their season is they make a rose bargain with the fairy queen. And that's something that's kind of different. So it's a historical fantasy romance kind of a thing, but historical fantasy. So in this world, the Fae Queen, essentially she made a bargain with the English king, and she became queen, and she's immortal. She's Fae, she's immortal. So she is the immortal queen that has been reigning in England for hundreds of years at this point. And something that they do every time is that these women that are debuting, these girls that are debuting into society, come to the queen during the season, and they make a rose bargain with her. They each go in one by themselves, and they make a bargain with the queen. Some of them will ask for perfect teeth, and she will give them perfect teeth in exchange for something else. So she'll give them perfect teeth, but she'll take your fingernails. She will give you perfect memory, but she will take your finger. It's really kind of creepy and interesting how all of that comes about. Or she'll give you a perfect face, but you will lose your ability to taste. There's all of these give and take situations with these bargains, right? And they're called rose bargains. Because the idea is that you're bargaining for something that will help you get a suitor, help you get a match, help you get a husband in this competitive market that it usually is with these types of situations. But for Ivy, for her coming out season that she's about to start, she's kind of in a situation where her family is basically ruined. If not completely ruined, they're on the verge of being ruined. And she thinks that this may be her time to save something, because if she goes into society, people probably aren't going to want to marry her. So she's hoping to salvage something. When the queen announces that for this season, if you choose to compete, essentially, that the prince, her son, Brom, who's the Fae Prince, is actually the one that's kind of up for grabs. So you can either enter the competition and you can potentially be chosen by Brom, or you can enter the season as normal with the other suitors. And so she thinks this is a great idea, that she can potentially she can compete to potentially be chosen by the prince when she may not have otherwise been chosen. But there's Fae trickery involved, the bargains aren't necessarily what they seem, and maybe there's the way it describes it in the synopsis is every glittering bargain, there's a rotting heart, and there's maybe an underlying danger that people aren't aware of. So that's kind of the synopsis you're getting into for this book. I will tell you right off the bat, I ate this book up. It was so fun. I really, really loved it. I did read The Selection. I've also read Cruel Prince, the first one, and the second one, not the whole series. But I did read The Cruel Prince, and I have read The Selection, and I can understand kind of why those two things are compared for this book. But I feel like I read The Selection, and I also kind of devoured those because it was just dramatic and fun, like watching The Bachelor. But I don't think they were very good, right? They were just kind of fun, but it wasn't 5-star read, just enjoyable and fun. Kind of like eating candy. I feel like this book is what I wanted The Selection to be. I loved that it was mixed with Fae. I loved that there was fantastical elements in it, as in the Fae magic. I loved that it was kind of like The Bachelor, but all of the way she wrote this and made it was just so good. It was magical, but it was sinister. It was fun, but it was a little bit treacherous. Everything that went into it is kind of what you want in a book. I loved it. But I loved the fairy trickery and sinister elements in particular, because while I love books like ACOTAR, where the Fae are just they're dangerous, right? but they're not tricky. Usually, like, sometimes they are in a little bit of stuff. Like, you can see that with ACOTAR as well. They're a little bit tricky. But I like when it's more like Emily Wilde's, where they're more dangerous and they're trying to actively trick you into something. I like both sides of it, but I like the refreshing trickery side of it. So that's kind of more where this goes. And I thought that was fun. I liked the bargain aspects with the queen. I had an idea as I was starting to read it that ended up not exactly being... I was trying to predict something, and it didn't exactly pan out the way I thought it was going to. But I just thought it was really interesting. So essentially, Ivy gets into this situation, and she knows she's going to compete for the prince's hand, but the queen announces that whoever decides to compete for the prince's hand, she was literally like, your season is about to start. You have, I think she gives them 10 minutes. She gives them a very short amount of time, from what I remember, to sign this document in blood. And if you sign the document in blood, you can be entered to enter the competition to win the prince's hand. But if you lose, I think she only gives like 24 spots as well. But if you lose, you cannot marry anyone else and you will be a spinster your whole life. What? Like, that's some pretty high stakes in society, right? So immediately I was intrigued and needed to know what was going to happen. I was curious. I thought she did like the pacing well. I thought the way the story unraveled was really interesting. I liked the way she did the different characters, which we can get into. The prince also has a human half-brother, which is interesting. Oh, stepbrother? So Ivy decides, I'm almost ruined anyway because her sister, whenever her sister came onto society earlier, because she's older, she made a bargain with the queen. It didn't pan out. She ended up not marrying anyone. And she doesn't remember what her bargain is. And she also disappeared for a bunch of time and then suddenly reappears before Ivy's season. And so Ivy's family was basically ruined because of this, because they thought that she ran off with some boy and was like scandalized and lost her reputation. And so her family's like on the brink of ruin because of this, and they don't know why. They don't know what happened. The sister doesn't remember what happened. So they're kind of like, what the heck do we do? And so Ivy thinks that this is the perfect way for her to kind of gain some reputation for her family, because if she enters the competition, at least they will be back into society for a little while. And if she wins, they're done. They're good. They're set. So she enters in this competition, and 24 girls enter. This is a little bit of a spoiler, but like it's pretty early on in the book. 24 girls enter, and then immediately she tells them, okay, you're gonna compete in this maypole dance because 24 is too many. Once they've like signed this in blood and they're legally obligated to do this, and they have to, they're magically bound to do it. And if they lose, they're spinsters, right? So she immediately is like, since 24 of you is too many, you're going to compete in this maypole dance. And the 6 left standing will actually compete for the prince's hand. The rest of you are done. That's so savage. I loved the drama of this. So that's like right off the bat, right? It's because you're like, how is this book going to 24 people? Nope. Almost all of them gone, except for 6 of them. So it's immediately like that. And it's very like cutthroat competition-esque. So there's like a lot of competition elements of this that's like trying to get them to fight with each other, basically. Trying to get them to climb all over each other, make enemies of one another. But they're like invited to live in this cottage, like on the palace grounds. The 6 of them end up making it, including Ivy, of course, because she's the main character. So I love that there's competition elements of this. I love that the Fae Queen is absolutely ruthless, and she has them like competing in these things and like possibly encouraging backstabbing, but she's also like, who's good enough to be vetted out to win my son's hand? Like, you have to show your mettle. You have to show that you're poised. You have to take criticism well. You have to have people gossip in front of your face and be like, this is fine. And she's like watching all of this, but she's also like savage and ruthless and Fae. But they're also competing, right? So they're getting ranked, and it's just all so interesting. And there's also this like subplot with the prince's brother, who everyone hates the Fae Queen. She's the worst, right? But there's nothing you can do about it. She's immortal. You can't kill her. People have tried. So they're trying to figure out how would there be a rebellion even? There can't be, because everybody has bargained with her and she's immortal. Nobody can kill her. People have tried and they failed and died and been like drawn and quartered. Like, you just can't. But the brother, the half-brother of Brahm, the prince, is human, and his father was like the prince consort to the queen, but he made a bargain that if he was able to bring his son to court, that he would no longer be able to speak to him. So he left court. The prince consort left court. So the son is very obviously upset about this because he lost his dad, basically, for all intents and purposes, because he's not allowed to communicate with him. Emmett, the other prince, the half-brother, human, obviously dislikes the queen because of this and kind of would like to see her reign end, but how do you get her reign to end? And it turns out that the father has been leaving him notes in books, like highlighting things and leaving clues about how they could potentially bring her downfall. I think it's because if she breaks her bargain that she made with the English king, then all of her other bargains would be null and void. So everything would go back to the way it was. She wouldn't be queen anymore. She wouldn't have subjects. They could turn on her. She wouldn't have like all these magical things that are making her invincible, right? So they develop this plot. Ivy has to win because if she wins, I won't go into this a whole lot, but if she wins, then the bargain will be null and void. The only way she could get her to break the queen's bargain is for the original bargain that is kind of unknown if she's no longer the only one, because the queen made a very specific wording of a bargain that she was the only one in a certain scenario. So they think if Ivy does this, all of this will be rewritten and she'll be able to save her family and her sister and all that. I loved it, as I've said. I thought the pacing was done really well. I really liked the competition aspects. I really like competition and like tournaments and books. It was kind of like a dating bachelor competition, which is just fun, you know? But I liked it a lot more than the selection. The girls are a little bit backstabby, but I honestly think they're more, not girly, because that's kind of hard when you're in a competition, but I think it's more nice and not as catty and mean. Like there is a little bit of that and you see it coming out, but I think they kind of more try to band together, at least when bad things start happening. There's a lot of interesting elements and you could see like them disliking people or whatever. There's like that kind of drama. But I think the way it's gone about is really interesting. And the author did something that I was not expecting. And I think every girl has a perspective in this book. So like all of it's from Ivy's perspective, like 90% of it's from Ivy's perspective, but every so often the author would write in one of the other girls. She would get like a small chapter of her perspective of what was going on. And I thought that was done really well. And I thought it was interesting how that was done. I liked that we got everyone's different perspectives and it kind of gave you a different piece to the puzzle of why they were competing. And I really enjoyed that. I thought that was really cool. And I liked how all of that like wove into the story as you were reading it and kind of gives you this bigger picture of what's actually happening in the story and the different backstories of those characters and how it's not necessarily what you think it is and not what it seems. The ending, I kind of saw coming a little bit, but I also thought it was really good. So there's like some twists and turns along the way. There's some heart-wrenching things. I also thought it was interesting that one thing got resolved in the first book that I thought would not be resolved until the second book, but it was. And I'm very curious to see how she continues this duology and how she wraps it up. I think it's very, kind of, not fast-paced necessarily, but I think there's just a lot going on that you're very invested and it's very dramatic. So there's just a lot to pull you into the story, which I enjoyed. Like, I want that sometimes in stories. I want it to be very dramatic and be very intense and draw me in. It doesn't have to be like this soliloquy about trees for 3 chapters all the time. So I really liked that. I thought it was done really well. It was very intriguing. I ended up giving this book 5 stars because I was just like in it. I was intrigued. I liked that it was different. And it just had me thinking and in my head and like kind of contemplating these different situations. I was invested in quite a few characters and some of the characters didn't pan out the way I thought they would. I just thought it was really, really good. And it just came out, so I thought, why not give you guys my thoughts on it? If you would like more spoilery thoughts, I could give it to you, but I would give you the whole plot of the book, and I'm trying not to do that, even though I probably gave you a little bit more information than you needed. But I would say if any of that sounds interesting to you, you should read this. Like, it was really interesting. If you kind of liked the selection, but you wanted more from it, read this book. Really curious to see how she kind of ties it all together at the end, but I think it's chalking up to be a really good read. Like a really good duology overall. And it's making me more interested in reading her other books that I haven't given a shot to yet, because I really liked her writing in the way that she was able to just like pull all of this together. Not saying that her other books will be like that, but I really, really liked this. I was going to look at this, and it does have overall pretty good rating on Goodreads. It's got a 4.8 20 over 788 ratings. So that's not bad. I was pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed this, and hopefully if you pick this up that you enjoy it as well. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know if this is a book that is on your TBR, if you're going to pick it up at some point, or if you're going to pass on it. But for now, that is it for today's video. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.